You're watching Behind the Headlines. I'm Lee Pacquiao. I'm happy to say we have Kent Zimmermann back on the show today. Kent, of course, is a consultant to law firms at the Zeughauser Group in Chicago, and we actually managed to get him here in studio in New York today. Welcome back, Kent. So good to see you.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
We were talking before we hopped on camera, of course, about how a lot of LPOs, the so-called legal process outsourcers, are taking a lot of work that law firms traditionally used to do. Can you explain what you're seeing in this space?
This is a fascinating trend, Lee. Let me give you a little picture of what's happening with an anecdote. I gave a talk recently for a large firm's executive committee retreat. And in that retreat, this LPO topic came up. One of the partners in the room raised her hand and she said, you know, one of my large clients, and this happened to be a large healthcare company based in the Western U.S., she said they're actually using one of these alternative legal service providers. It happened to be Axiom Legal in this case. She said Axiom recently did one of their smaller transactions, did one of their M&A deals.
And don't they usually just do due diligence? I mean, they're actually doing hands-on transactional work
Precisely. Now? People in the room said, oh, gosh, that's terrible. They took the due diligence. She said, no. They didn't do the due diligence. They did the whole deal.
Yikes.
That's a change. People took pause immediately in the room. And what's happening is these LPOs and other alternative legal service providers, they used to do just the diligence or just the e-discovery. Now they're going upstream and they're doing some more sophisticated work that didn't used to be viewed as commodity work, but is becoming so routine that companies are turning to alternative legal service providers to do them.
Now, our clients are driving those decisions, obviously. Are clients driving them based primarily on price? Is there some other reason that you would want Axiom Legal rather than, say, Sullivan & Cromwell doing your transactional work? So
Axiom, first of all, was founded by some Wall Street attorneys. They have very good talent. But what I would say is when we talk to the clients say, look, we need price to be market competitive, if not more than market competitive. But what they also say is in some of these routine transactions, some routine matters, they don't need perfect. They don't need perfect to pay the rates of one of the most expensive firms in the country. They need good enough, and they need it to be done well, but not by the best firms. But something I'll say is at this firm where I was at their executive committee retreat, she said her client told the firm, look, we're going to use Axiom for the deal, but we also want you to supervise portions of their work. Almost adding insult to injury for the firms.
Sure, they're paying them to watch someone else eat their lunch.
Precisely. That's exactly what's happening. We see that playing out in many places, but this was one extremely concrete example that took people by surprise who were in that room.
Okay, so what do you tell your clients? I mean, what can they do to counteract this trend, if anything, other than cut prices by substantial amounts? I mean, it's remarkable what's happening here.
We're seeing a number of firms take a look at this trend, and the first thing they want to do is they want to get to know the LPO market better. They sometimes are surprised to realize that the LPO market in sales in 2012 did $1.2 billion, according to a group called the LPO Project out of the UK. Wow. So the LPO market has gotten big. In fact, the LPO Project estimates their growth at an average of 32% over the last 3 years. Major growth, especially considering that many law firms here in the U.S. are contracting in size. Now, they're growing smaller in order to try to go financially stronger, but they're getting smaller. So the U.S. law firm's getting smaller, the LPO is getting bigger. So law firms, first of all, want to get their arms around what's happening. And second of all, some of the more progressive, forward-looking ones are starting to develop their own strategies on how to get into the game. Some are partnering with LPOs, some set up captive third company businesses with LPOs managing and hiring the talent. What's happening is that many clients are driving firms to both work with LPOs and in some cases to actually, as I say, supervise LPO work. Just another quick anecdote for you.
Sure.
A very large firm out of DC was asked by their client to use an LPO in an engagement that they were working on. The firm's lawyers at the first meeting, they had their arms crossed. They hated the idea. They didn't want to work with the LPO. By the end of the engagement, what the firm told us is that they actually appreciated so much working with the LPO because of how efficient the LPO was and because of how much the client liked the LPO's involvement, that what happened was the firm, on future matters with other clients, actually took the LPO along as their partner on pitches to differentiate the firm's capabilities compared to other firms that didn't work with LPOs.
Wow. Ken, are we going to get to a point where clients are going to realize that law firms partnering with LPOs, clients can just cut out the middleman, right? Is that ever going to come to pass?
Law firms are going to need to add value in these relationships. If the law firm is purely seen as an extra layer, particularly an extra cost layer, then you're right. the companies will just increasingly go to LPOs and leave law firms out of the loop. But to the extent that law firms are able to supervise, provide supervisory enhanced quality, provide something that the LPOs don't provide, we'll continue to see law firms in the mix. Some of that is going to depend on the extent of the sophistication of the deal. There are some deals where it's going to be important to have a law firm involved, either because they bring some substantive expertise or they bring what we would refer to politely as CYA capabilities, meaning that the general counsel can tell his or her board if the deal goes south, oh, I had law firm XYZ supervising. I didn't just have an LPO working on this. That's why in some cases we'll still see U.S. law firms involved in these deals.
Kent, thanks for stopping by.
You bet.
That's Kent Zimmermann, consultant to law firms at the Zeughauser Group. If you'd like to learn more about the issues we just discussed, be sure to go check out our offerings on BloombergLaw.com and also on the Bloomberg Terminal. You can see more of our videos on YouTube. You can follow our updates on Twitter. I'm Lee Pacquiao. Thanks for watching.